Hey guys, thanks for stopping on in for today's video where I'm going to be covering what happened in the primaries on June 26, 2018. And this video specifically going to be focusing on the Senate races and the governor races. So we're going to look at what happened in these 5 states if they had elections going on in the governor or Senate races or both. And then I'm also going to be making more videos today after this looking at the competitive congressional districts and how the primaries went for those. And then also I'm going to make a video where I look at what happened with the progressive candidates, the Justice Democrats, or the Our Revolution candidates. They had a number of candidates going in these districts that happened in yesterday's primary, so we're going to take a look at that as well. So starting off here with the Colorado Governor Democratic primary, we had 585,000 votes. We have about 96% of the precincts counted, and their winner went on to grab 261,000 of that vote with 44.7%. And then you compare that over to what happened in the Republican primary, where 479,000 votes have been cast with about 94% of the vote coming in. So as you can see here, quite a bit more turnout on the Democrat side. A similar amount of precincts have been counted in the Democrats. Over 100,000 more votes cast in their primary than the Republican primary. And we're just seeing a bit more enthusiasm right now on the Democrat side of things. Also, Colorado State, that's trending in a bit more of a Democratic direction. And based on what we're seeing in this primary with the voter turnouts on both sides, it does look pretty good for Colorado right now that it looks like Jared Polis, the guy who went on to win the Democratic primary, is going to set up to have a pretty good shot at going on in winning this race once we get to the general election. And then there was no Senate primary for the state of Colorado. So now we're going to move on to Maryland, and they had a Democratic primary. Huge win for the progressives here, battling back the establishment-backed candidate Rushern Baker as Ben Jealous goes on to win here. Pretty strong turnout. We have almost 100% of the precincts and about 550,000 votes casted. And then the current governor, Republican Larry Hogan, ran unopposed. He's a pretty popular governor in the state of Maryland, but in a time of Donald Trump where Republicans as a whole just don't have that enthusiasm right now to go out and vote in comparison to the Democrats, that's going to make things a little bit tougher for Larry Hogan, but he is the incumbent. He's got that name recognition, and he's definitely going to be the favorite coming into this matchup. But I feel like the Democrats choosing a guy like Ben Jealous over Rushern Baker gives them a better shot because there's actually a stark contrast and difference between a candidate like Jealous and Hogan in comparison to a more establishment, maybe a little bit more moderate type candidate in Rushern Baker, who might not generate as much enthusiasm behind his candidacy in comparison to a Jealous. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this governor matchup plays out in a state like Maryland, which is much more Democratic in general than Republican in these statewide elections. But as you can see, Larry Hogan has shown that a Republican can win a statewide election, with him winning his last time going for that governorship. So then also moving on to the U.S. Senate, wasn't even close in terms of the turnout voting-wise on the Democrat side compared to the Republicans. Part of that is also because the Democrats had the governor primary to turn out and vote in for, and the Republicans didn't have that same incentive with Larry Hogan running unopposed. But as we can see here, incumbent Ben Cardin, with 99.5% of the precincts reporting right now, 560,000 votes cast here, and the incumbent running away with it. Interesting, Chelsea Manning was running here as well and got second place. Not too bad for somebody who's never run for office before. And then we go down and look at the Republican primary, and just 169,000 votes cast. So you can see a stark difference there in the turnout on the Democratic side, almost about 400,000 more votes cast. This is going to be a safe Democratic Senate seat. We do expect the incumbent, of course, to go on and continue to carry this Senate seat in the state of Maryland. So now moving on to New York, where we didn't have much in the way of interest going on. The governor's race, which is going to be really interesting to see how that turns out on the Democratic side with Cynthia Nixon challenging Cuomo, but that election is going to be on another date. For whatever reason, New York splits up their primaries, and this was the one focusing on the federal results. So as you can see here, incumbent Kirsten Gillibrand running unopposed, and then her challenger also running unopposed. But in a state like New York, Republicans really tough time in statewide elections, and the incumbent Gillibrand basically a lock and guarantee to go on and keep this U.S. Senate seat for the Democrats. So now moving on to Oklahoma, and we just have a couple more states here left, Oklahoma and Utah. So the Oklahoma governor's race, I was actually pretty surprised at how competitive the Democrats made things in their total vote count in comparison to the Republicans. So you can see here, almost 400,000 votes on the Democrat side, and I feel like we're getting an increased turnout in the Democratic Party here in the state of Oklahoma, because I think a lot of this might have to do with the teachers' strike that went on in 2018 and the fact that that's really energizing maybe a lot of the Democratic voters to come out and vote. But as you can see on the Republican side, it's going to go to a runoff, and they had about 450,000 votes cast. So, of course, the Republicans here getting more votes in total, a very competitive primary on their side, and the Democrats only 50,000 votes behind. And in a state like Oklahoma that's overwhelmingly Republican, it's actually a pretty impressive turnout. Drew Edmondson might be able to keep things more competitive than people expect. Of course, you give the lean certainly over to the Republicans, but Edmondson was able to grab 242,000 votes in comparison right now to the Republican winner, who's at 132,000, but they really diluted their vote there across a number of different candidates, and still getting a bit more turnout, but still in a state like Oklahoma, you don't expect it to be that competitive. And then we didn't have a Senate race in the state of Oklahoma. So now moving on to Utah, where we did have a Senate race, and unfortunately on the Democratic side, we don't get to see a turnout number because Jenny Wilson ran unopposed. And then on the Republican side, not a big surprise here, Mitt Romney winning rather convincingly over Mike Kennedy. Over 300,000 people turned out, and right now we have 97.5% of the precincts reporting Mitt Romney winning in an absolute blow. And I would be shocked if he didn't win this at the end of the day. He's still quite popular across the state of Utah, and Utah is a state where you're in a statewide election, Republicans are basically guaranteed to win. So look for Mitt Romney to be the next senator here from the state of Utah. And that's going to wrap up the 5 states that had primaries yesterday, looking at the Senate and governor races. Some interesting numbers there. Now that this video is wrapped up, I'm going to go ahead and make a video focusing on the competitive congressional districts and how those primaries played out. And then also I'm going to be making a video looking and seeing how the different progressive candidates did in their respective primaries. So thanks guys for stopping on in. Subscribe for more and check out all of our videos over on our YouTube channel. Bye.